Is there a differentiation between the military wing, the fighters in the tunnels, confronting, I have to be careful with my words here, but confronting the IDF in Gaza compared to support for Hamas as a political entity? I can see the argument that people don't like Hamas's politics or they don't support the way it behaves and so on and so forth. We heard Anthony Blinken say around a year ago saying that Hamas has replenished all of the fighters that have been killed in their estimates, right? These guys that have joined since, for example, I would imagine the Gazans probably support those individuals in their individual resistance.
First of all, I wouldn't even trust Anthony Blinken to tell me what time it
Oh no,
is,
of
let
course, yeah,
alone anything.
yeah.
How long can Israel sustain this pattern before it begins to go into a process of collapse? And there's quite a lot of historical precedent, I think, for states such as Israel when they reach a level of extremism, of authoritarianism, and so on, a level of permanent enmity with their surroundings. Sooner or later, their days are numbered.
The bodies of the 9-month-old and the 4-year-old in a casket were put on a stage. They were then taken off the stage and handed over and, recorded and so on. How do you interpret those actions there? These are children who were killed. I'm not suggesting anyone should support these guys or anything like that, but you can at
Oh,
least
that's
sit.
right. You're contacting me from Britain. 1973 is a very good example where Israel, because of its hubris, because it was convinced that Arabs don't know how to fight wars, because it was persuaded that Egypt and Syria not only wouldn't be able to launch a surprise attack, but wouldn't dare to do so, that it neglected the information in its possession and decided not to act on it until it was too late. I think the attacks of October 7th are even more damning for Israel because Hamas managed to conceal its intentions and its preparations to a significantly greater extent. We're talking about what is arguably the most intensely surveyed territory, which is also the size of a postage stamp. Despite this, Israel was unable to connect the dots. And there, I think there will be a reckoning, both with Hamas and with Fatah and with the Palestinian national movement more generally, of how could we have had a situation in which the Palestinian movement was not unified, was not able to take a collective decision on matters of existential importance like war and peace, and this was left to one faction among many rather than being a collective decision, and what are the consequences of that? And then in the 1960s, after Israel occupied the Gaza Strip, it even reached an agreement with the Nazi regime, if you will, of the Stroessner regime of Paraguay, in which, in exchange for arms and diplomatic support, I think, Paraguay would accept something along the lines of 60,000 Gazans a year. And they actually began implementing this until a Palestinian who'd basically been promised the moon and realized he was getting nothing went and shot up the Israeli embassy in the Paraguayan capital, Asuncion. Then it ended. But